In the heart of Lagos, where high walls hide more secrets than the city's crowded markets, there stood a mansion that glimmered like gold in the evening sun. The compound was wide enough to host a football match, and the cars that slept in its garage were the kind that made people whisper when they passed. Inside lived the Nduka family, wealthy, respected, admired. Mr. Nduka was a top oil executive. His wife, Chioma, owned a thriving interior design company, and together, they had 2 children, Tiga, 15, and Mimi, 12. To everyone on the outside, they were the picture of a perfect Lagos family. But behind that gate, something dark was quietly growing, waiting for the right time to explode. Every morning began the same way. The children's laughter mixed with the hum of the generator, the clatter of breakfast plates, and the footsteps of the house staff. There were 2 maids, Amora and Joy, a cook named Musa, a cleaner called Iriti, and a gatekeeper, Boba Connell. The house ran like a small company. Everyone had a role, everyone had a place. Mr. and Mrs. Nduka trusted their workers deeply. After all, they were hardly home. Lagos traffic and endless business meetings meant they saw their children mostly at night, sometimes not even then. "They're in good hands," Chioma would always say, glancing at Amora and Joy with a grateful smile before leaving for work. But the truth was, those hands were not good at all. Amora was the senior maid. Polite on the surface, always saying yes ma'am and no more with a bow, but behind her soft voice was a woman with a sharp mind and darker desires. She had worked for the family for 3 years, long enough to earn trust, and long enough to learn how to hide her secrets. Joy, the younger maid, was different. She followed Amora's lead, always eager to please, always pretending. To the children, she was Auntie Joy, the cheerful one who played music when the parents weren't around. But soon, that laughter turned into something else: manipulation, cruelty, and fear that the children could not explain. It began with little things. Tiga would come home from school quieter than usual. Mimi stopped smiling. They avoided eye contact, whispered to each other at night, and jumped whenever Amora's footsteps echoed down the corridor. When Chioma asked, "Are you okay?" they would nod and say yes. Because Amora had already told them what would happen if they said otherwise. "Your parents won't believe you," she said once, her eyes cold. "Do you think rich people have time for stories from children?" Those words sank deep into their hearts. Days turned into weeks. The maid's behavior became worse, not only cruelty but humiliation. They gave the children hard chores after school, locked them out of the sitting room, and controlled everything they ate. When Tiga refused to wash Joy's clothes one afternoon, Amora slapped him so hard that his nose bled. "You think because your father drives big car, you can disrespect me," she hissed. "If you say anything, I'll make sure your sister pays for it." And so he kept quiet, swallowing his tears and his pride. Lagos kept moving, the endless traffic, the laughter on the streets, the noise of commerce, but inside the mansion, silence grew heavy like smoke. One night, when the rain was falling hard and the parents were stuck in traffic, Mimi snuck into her brother's room. Her voice trembled as she said, "Tiga, I don't like what Auntie Amora does when we are alone." Her eyes were wide, filled with fear and confusion. Tiga froze. It was the same thing he had been enduring in silence, the same dark shadow that had been following them both. They sat together that night, holding each other, too scared to speak louder than whispers. The next morning, Chioma noticed Mimi's swollen eyes. "Are you sure school is fine?" she asked again. "You've changed lately." But before the girl could speak, Amora appeared at the door, smiling. "Madam, it's just small malaria. I gave her medicine already." Chioma smiled back, relieved. She never noticed how the girl's hand trembled slightly when Amora touched her shoulder. It would take months before the truth began to leak out. One Sunday afternoon, the family decided to attend a wedding in Lekki. Everyone was supposed to go, but Joy claimed she was sick and stayed back at home. Later that night, Boba Connell, the security guard, saw something strange through the window. The children were cleaning the sitting room in silence while Joy sat watching them, shouting orders, and making them scrub the floor like servants. He frowned but said nothing. In Lagos, people mind their business. But when it happened again, the next week, and the next, he started to suspect something was wrong. Everything changed one evening when Mr. Nduka's company announced a surprise leave. He came home early for the first time in months. The gate opened, and his black SUV rolled into the compound quietly. Inside, he heard raised voices, Joy shouting, and Mimi crying. He moved closer, his heart racing. What he saw made his blood boil. The children were kneeling on the floor, cleaning a spill with their bare hands while Joy stood over them, yelling insults. He stormed into the room. What is happening here? The entire house froze. Joy stammered, her voice shaking. Sir, it's not what it looks like, but Tiga had already run to his father, holding his legs, crying uncontrollably. Daddy, please, don't let them hurt us again. Those words hit him like a hammer. In that single moment, everything he'd ignored came crashing down, the quiet looks, the sudden fear, the loss of laughter. He looked at his son, then his daughter, and something inside him shattered. Chioma arrived moments later. The house erupted into chaos. The truth poured out in fragments, the bullying, the punishments, the threats. And then, through tears, Mimi whispered what Amora had done, not in details, but enough for her mother to understand. Chioma collapsed to her knees, screaming. My God, my children, the pain in her voice echoed through the marble halls like a curse. Mr. Nduka didn't sleep that night. He called the police the next morning. Amora and Joy were arrested before sunrise. The investigation that followed uncovered more than anyone expected, messages, recordings, and reports from neighbors who had heard cries but never intervened. It became a story that shook the neighborhood. The press caught wind of it. Everyone wanted to know how such evil could hide behind such luxury. The children were taken for counseling. It took months for them to smile again. There were nightmares, silence, and long therapy sessions filled with tears. Chioma stopped working for a while. She stayed home, cooked for her children, and held them close. I'm sorry, she whispered one night, sitting between their beds. I thought I was giving you a good life. I didn't know I was leaving you in danger. Tiga, still broken but healing, took her hand. It's okay, Mom. You're here now. By the time the court case ended, Amora and Joy were sentenced. The judge's voice was cold as he spoke, evil hides not only in darkness but also in trust. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Chioma's quiet sobbing. When it was over, Mr. Nduka walked out with his family, their faces pale but determined. They had lost peace, but they had found truth, and truth, no matter how painful, was a form of healing. Months passed. The mansion that once echoed with pain slowly began to feel alive again. The laughter of Tiga and Mimi returned, softer this time, but real. The walls no longer held secrets, only lessons. Chioma and her husband decided to start an awareness foundation for working parents. They began visiting schools, talking about child safety, and teaching families to watch for warning signs. The story that nearly destroyed them became the reason many other families were saved. In Lagos, the news faded as new headlines took over. But in that mansion, behind those once silent gates, a new chapter began, one built on truth, presence, and love. The family learned what wealth could never buy: awareness. And every time Chioma saw a housemate smile too sweetly at another child, her heart would tighten, not in anger, but in caution. Because now she knew that evil doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes, it whispers through trusted voices and wears a smile that looks like help. So if you are watching this story, remember this. No amount of money or comfort is worth your children's silence. Check in on them. Listen to them. Don't leave your home's heartbeat in the hands of strangers. Because behind every mansion gate, there may be a story waiting to be told, and some stories, once ignored, can destroy everything you love.